Welcome back to the world of Chuck Lorre's cinematic TV show shenanigans. That's right, we are doing another show created by the father of the sitcom, as I guess some people presumably call him, and this time we are looking at 2.5 Men, a show from the early 2000s centered around the tale of two brothers and one of those brothers' children, that child being the half in the title, who all live together as Alan, the guy with the child's marriage, falls apart, and he must intrude upon his rich jingle writer brother Charlie's home. I'll be honest, I didn't really care for this show beyond the episode that we're going to be focusing on today, and I think that is just because it didn't really work for me, and that doesn't really mean that you totally can't like this yourself. I get it. It's sort of fun and lighthearted, and I can see it being somebody's jam. Ultimately, we're here to do what we always are here to do, which is discuss and analyse a trans episode, which is what this is. And I can tell you right now that this one is a doozy, is a standout amongst the crowd for quite a few reasons, and is certainly worth caring about. But I also want to quickly just make it clear that we are only talking about Season 1's episode 18, an old flame with a new wick from 2004, not the other trans episodes from Season 11. Yeah, there are more. Wild stuff and hard to believe, I know it must be, but I wanted to split them up so I could really let each one breathe and give us a view on it centered around the concepts from when it was set and in regard to the changes the show faced between those two time periods, i.e. Charlie Sheen going off the deep end and getting fired from 2.5 Men.
Because I'm me, I'm different. I just have a different constitution, I have a different brain, I have a different heart, I have a different, I get tiger blood, man.
You don't worry that you're gonna die when you take that many drugs?
Dying's for fools.
I also wanted to leave it as an option for future video milking, so, sue me. Anyway, let's get into this singular episode centered around a trans man. Yeah, I know, that's the hook. What a hook it is, though. We rarely ever get the chance to talk about that facet of the community, and this really does give us the chance to see what is done differently. The episode begins with our main characters, Charlie and Alan and the child whose name I never bothered learning, alongside Charlie's housekeeper, chatting at the breakfast table about some silly stuff, as well as the fact that one of Charlie's exes is back in town, Jill, who was apparently quite the slob, but was also really, really hot, and who also broke up with Charlie to go to Europe and find herself. Something which broke his heart and makes it very clear that Charlie felt very close to Jill, enough that this serial sleeper of woman was actually touched by her leaving him, and does what he can to deny such a fact.
I did not. I felt the appropriate amount of sadness for a good relationship that had run its course.
We then cut from this scene to a bar. What bar, you might be asking? It doesn't matter. It's just the bar that 2.5 Men uses for any time that bar-related stuff must occur. The names and the people are interchangeable. The location is what really matters. And it is in this bar that Charlie is waiting for Jill to appear, and to reconnect with her. Presumably a little bit because he maybe hopes that this could lead once more to a relationship. It was very apparent from the last scene that Charlie was invested in this idea, only for a random guy to walk in, sit down next to Charlie and begin interact with him, with some awkward, weird small talk.
Hey. Hey.
What can I get for you?
White wine, please. Maybe a Chablis.
Now, the audience is laughing up a storm at some bits here that are not really funny unless you know the truth of who this random character is, which makes me suspect that it's either inserted laughter or they have cue cards to direct the audience, because how do they know this is something worth laughing at otherwise? It's not like a joke gets said or something wacky happens when the stranger walks into the bar.
Oh, yeah. This girl's something different. How so?
But while the studio audience might have some kind of prescience or foresight that the regular viewer cannot possibly hope to match, we're stuck learning about this random dude the normal way. The big reveal being in conversation that this is Jill, or, well, the person formerly known as Jill, who is now a trans man and a he, not a she.
Jill?
Bill.
No.
I mean, maybe the studio audience just has a really good transdar, though I refuse to accept that it's better than mine because this shit is refined, alright? I have spent decades hunting out trans characters, okay? So, you know, no way. Charlie is rather taken aback by this information, is perhaps reeling a little bit, and is maybe uncertain about how this leaves him. But there is a conversation that I rather like here, around how the friendship between Charlie and Bill, the person formerly known as Jill is now named, and I mean, seriously? Bill? I mean, each trans person to their own transition choices, but that's a silly little one. Although, maybe I kind of like it now I think about it, because it is such a silly little funny way of changing your name. Okay, I think I've convinced my way around to being on board with the new name of Bill. I'm with it now. That's actually kind of like a funny pick, so cool. Anyways, the friendship between these two was always the best part for Charlie. The closeness that was felt, potentially due to some shared similarities and identity that perhaps he was just not aware of.
Did you ever go out with somebody who was not only great in bed, but also like a really cool friend?
Yeah. Once.
In fact, now that I think about it, the friendship was the best part of our relationship.
There's also a little joke thrown in here about how the hanging out was better than the sex because both of them kept trying to be the top. Which I kind of like as a referential joke to the trans masculine nature. I mean, it does admittedly fall into the stereotyping of being the top, being the dominant, as being the male thing, which is absolutely not true. I mean, dom mummies have become a huge thing in recent years, especially of the monster variety.
So, I just got spoiled about Lady Dimitrescu, and let me just say that I am very down bad because I love MILFs and monsters. Double whammy, y'all.
But understanding that this is just the show using a very common gendered perspective on sex, I think that joke is one of the better trans ones I have heard in my entire time doing this YouTube analysis stuff, especially from 2004. That's probably a bad sign. The conversation between the two goes through this whole back and forth dialogue around whether Charlie believes that Bill truly is a dude, while Charlie also drinks quite heavily thanks to that whole not being really rather comfortable with the situation.
So mixed up and unhappy as a woman.
So, I know lots of mixed up unhappy women. They go shopping and eat ice cream. Did you even try that?
And Bill defends himself and defends his choices from Charlie, laying out the reasoning and justifications, which would normally seem rather too much revealing for a trans person. But in this case, it's Bill reconnecting with an old flame and wanting to clear the air with someone they felt very close to, so I understand that going into it in detail makes a lot of sense. These aren't just random people, they know each other quite intimately. And while Charlie does make some funny little jokes about it, and does get up to leave at one point, Bill convinces him to stay.
Okay, well, now you've explained. Thank you. Nice to see you again. Good luck with the penis.
Wait.
And the ultimate conclusion from the scene appears to be that they both want to keep being friends, and that their friendship is more important than Charlie's current inability to believe or be convinced by the gender transition, an attitude emphasized through his low commitment to calling Bill Bill and to correctly gendering him consistently.
Oh, jeez. It's gonna be okay, Jill.
Bill.
Yeah, Bill, whatever.
Before we move from this scene, I just want to say that the actor for Bill did really ham up the more feminine side of the character, really placing a lot of notion on the fact that here is a man who was raised as a woman for a long time and interacted with the world in that way, and so there are still feminine connections there, or feminine ideas that he is more easily able to express himself like that, which I do think was done mostly for the audience to have a little giggle at.
Oh, Charlie, you're the best.
Oh, I wish I could have loved you the way you deserve to be loved.
But in this retrospect, it is possible to view it in the positive light that here is how men should be able to act, or to feel able to express feeling. There's also gay or homoerotic undertones even at this point that are used by the show to get some more laughs in the studio audience, and that's because no matter how well you might do or how well an episode is going, it's still a sitcom set in a time period when trans representation and the larger LGBTQ representation was far from perfect or well understood or considered heavily in regards to the impact that it could have. With all that said, we then move to the next scene, where Bill takes the quite drunk Charlie home and gets to meet Alan, with there being a joke that ties into that homoerotic thing we literally just mentioned, when Charlie and Bill are walking up the stairs together.
Drag your drunk ass home, take you upstairs,
Get you undressed and...
And already in this scene, we can see that Charlie is being more considerate in regards to trying to call him Bill. And Alan has no idea what is going on because, it's not explained to him. So it just seems like Charlie came home with another one of his male friends, and that's that. The housekeeper from earlier also appears and seems to be freaked out or unsure about Bill, potentially because she used to know him pre-transition, and is therefore trying to figure out why this person looks so similar to Jill. But she leaves still not really having worked it out and looking confused as hell. As she leaves, Evelyn appears, Charlie and Alan's mother, a confident and sassy older woman who knows what she likes and is always hooking up with people with not a care for what others think of her. Which is to say, I love her and I hope this episode does her justice. She immediately begins hitting on Bill, because he's attractive and a smooth talker, and well, we just kinda covered how aggressive a woman Evelyn can be when it comes to pursuing that dick.
Price right?
I'm flexible.
I'll bet you are. But I was talking money.
Well, so was I.
Sexy and liquid. I like that in a man.
Anyways, we then cut to Bill and Evelyn making out in Charlie's home after having gone on a date, with Evelyn then inviting Bill back to her place for a hookup, while Charlie and Alan just watch, agape. Firstly, power move to both Bill and Evelyn, moving fast and getting in there. And secondly, we discover that Alan has an issue with the age gap thing, because of how young Bill is. And that's probably due to the fact that Alan doesn't know that Bill is a trans man yet, while Charlie does and tells him how the age gap is the least of their worries, pulling out a photo of Bill pre-transition and showing it to Alan, who takes a couple of seconds before he finally gets it.
Okay. She's cute. Very tall. Broad shoulders. Holy mother of God!
Now, outing a trans person like this without their knowledge or consent is a shitty thing to do, unless they have been very clear in the fact that they are comfortable with others knowing, like myself. Then it's an infringement upon their privacy, and their choice to select who gets that privileged information. What I'm saying here is, don't do this. Don't do what Charlie did here. Both Alan and Charlie then start drinking heavily, with Charlie making a comment about how this is like living in the Matrix. A comment that has only become funnier with time. This episode was made in 2004, a year after The Gothamist reported on a possible transition from Lana Wachowski, but that was all fully denied right up until 2008 when she felt actually comfortable coming out. The idea of both the directors of The Matrix being trans women, and that they would both state The Matrix was a trans allegory, is not something that was public knowledge or linked enough to The Matrix for this to have been an intentional joke. It being probably more connected to the whole living in a machine wacky world of the robots that Matrix presented. It's just fantastic future development in the real world for the joke that Two and a Half Men could not have really prepared for, and sometimes the world is just full of fun coincidences like that. This getting drunk, though, leads to Charlie having a bit of a mental breakdown and self-introspection over what Bill means to him. Like, does that make Charlie gay? He starts questioning all the things that he does and likes and is into, and it really does seem to spark a lot of thought about something that most straight guys do not like to consider whatsoever.
Maybe all these years I've been pathologically chasing women because I've been overcompensating.
You know, I've often thought that.
I mean, gayness or gay adjacentness is heavily frowned upon and mocked, and turned into this bad thing to the degree that straight men will do horrible things to try and assure themselves of their non-gay status. I mean, I grew up in a school that was full of that shit, and you can look into the gay or trans panic defense in the US for an example of how cis-straight men reclaim their identity in the worst way possible when it feels threatened. But while Charlie is freaking out over whether he is gay now, and honestly it's nice that he's more kind of considering it than immediately leaping to defensiveness or to aggressiveness, like it's more just like a what does this mean for me kind of situation. And I just want to make it patently clear here that being into a trans man before he transitions does not automatically make you gay. That's not how that works. Alan, on the other hand, is focusing on the fact that their mother is sleeping with a trans guy, and is trying to, I guess, put the maths together for something that he is uncomfortable with from two angles. Not being fully comfortable with the idea of a trans person, or fully comfortable with the idea of their mum having sex with somebody that Charlie has sex with too. Alcohol mixes very poorly with trying to keep your mind off of things that you shouldn't even bother really thinking about, or concerning yourself with, and I can't help but think of this scene as a great showcase of that fact. Anyway, the next scene is in the morning, when Charlie and Alan are hungover as fuck, and the housekeeper comes back to clean things up, picking up a picture of pre-transition Bill and suddenly realizing what it was that they were trying to figure out last time she saw him, going to confront Charlie over it and saying the name of the episode.
Go to a fun party, see a great movie, run into an old flame with a new Wick.
Alright, we can wrap it up. They said the name. Everyone, they said the name. They said the name of the episode. That's the show. Shut it down. In seriousness, the scene continues with Evelyn coming into the house to talk to her boys. Clearly has some kind of boasting element to her recent conquest in the bedroom, as Charlie is uncomfortable with the situation, and Berta the housekeeper seems to be reveling in her knowledge about Bill that Evelyn isn't aware of.
The only thing that matters to me now is that Bill is a handsome, sensitive, wonderful man. Excuse me?
At this point, I am, as so often happens with these episodes, living in the potential fear that 2.5 Men is going to drive this episode car into the proverbial bigoted ocean, and there will be some kind of massive transphobic end joke for the audience to have a big ol' laugh at us for. So that worry is there, but at least for the moment, nobody is vomiting at the notion of a trans person having sexual intercourse with somebody. Though there is certainly a fair amount of laughter about it. The scene continues, with Evelyn proving more and more that she is such a powerhouse of a woman, that she really, truly did just come here to rub the boys' noses in the fact that she got some.
Wait, Mom, I thought you came here so that we could discuss it.
Oh, please, I came here to brag. I just needed an opening line.
And Berta, on the other hand, continues to keep making little jabs and snide remarks about the whole trans element that Evelyn is in the dark with. Kind of a shitty thing to do for Berta here, honestly. Just mind your own business, Jesus Christ. And so Charlie meets with Bill back at the insert name here bar, and talks to Bill about the whole him dating his mother situation. And Bill really does a good job of shutting down the worst ways in which Charlie tries to infringe upon Bill's autonomous choice to consensually have sex with Charlie's mother.
When a guy talks like that about another guy's mom, he's likely to get his ass kicked.
Oh, Charlie, please, don't get all macho on me. You couldn't take me when I was a girl.
Though Charlie does eventually get around to saying that Bill should tell her that he is a trans man before she finds out the hard way, and that while it might be scary or something that he is afraid of, that he needs to step up and be a man, if that is what he wants to be. Like, yeah, there is definitely the takeaway with that line that masculinity and courage are not necessarily synonymous, and the show is working with an outdated version of that. But I also do think that it's a rather sweet scene, and a sweet ending moment for the characters to really showcase that whole situation, that they are friends, and that their interactions are based out of some level of mutual respect. Charlie does, at some level, want the best for Bill, and for his mother, and just wants them to be honest with one another, even if Bill is afraid of the consequences. And Bill is willing to see Charlie's point of view, and to consider it.
But what if she rejects me?
Well, welcome to the rodeo, Calamity Jane. You want to be a real man? Grab hold of those store-bought balls and just tell the truth.
You're right.
It's frankly kind of a mature confrontation, and while it's littered with the expected jokes from a sitcom, the core message is a positive one, or at least interprets the characters' relationships in a positive manner. So, we jump to the next scene, where Bill asks Evelyn to come out onto the balcony of the house so that he can tell her, which he does while everybody else involved in the episode is watching through the window. Kind of creepy, maybe, give the people doing that sort of intense conversation some privacy? I don't know. But at first it seems like Evelyn is totally on board with the information. She doesn't seem to mind, and everyone inside is shocked, because, this is not the perceived or expected reaction, before Bill says something else, and she then proceeds to faint. Now, it's not actually clear, because we can't hear what they are saying and I can't read lips, which part she fainted over, as there are two pieces of information here that Bill would be saying. The first, that he is a trans man, and the second, that he used to date her son. Now, it would make more sense, I think, to say that first bit, first, because it's kind of contextual information that leads to the second part. And so that would mean that Evelyn has no issue with Bill being a trans man. That theory, by me, leads us to our second part of this scene, where Evelyn is at the kitchen table with her two sons, who are making a pros and cons list for whether she should keep seeing Bill.
He slept with Charlie when he was a woman.
Pro. No, wait, con. Definitely con.
He knows what I like in bed.
He knows what I like in bed.
It seems to be rather equaled out until Evelyn takes over the list and writes down how smart, attractive, and emotionally available Bill is, before standing up, announcing she has a date, and leaving.
He's gorgeous. He can afford beachfront property, and he's got a trunk full of fabulous shoes that fit me perfectly. Don't wait up. Mummy's got a date.
Evelyn doesn't give a fuck if Bill is trans or not. She knows what she likes, and that's that. God, I love that woman. That's some true allyship right there. We stan Evelyn in this house. That's no chaser. That's just a goddamn queen. So that's the episode. And this obviously does stand out a little bit from the previous things we've talked about, due to the fact that it is a trans man. A group that I don't often get a chance to talk about or discuss representation around. A big factor in that is that trans men do so often get forgotten in the discourse and the debate, with it very much being focused upon trans women's bodies and trans women's invasion of women's spaces or stealing of women's rights, to the degree that it kind of shoves all the other groups under the gender umbrella out of the mainstream. And you might think that's a positive thing, right? Hey, they're not getting talked about, and the talking about is not normally the nicest thing right now, but it also means that their issues and their problems get forgotten. Trans men don't even get a thought given to them in a lot of cases, and that can be as hurtful as it is positive. But while the episode covering a trans man is unusual, this is still a sitcom episode from 2004, which makes it quite similar to others we have covered on this channel, and I think it really affords us the ability to compare it to them. First and foremost, I want to talk about the actor involved in the trans character, because it's something that I always think about at the beginning when I see them, and I think it's useful to just get it out of the way. Chris O'Donnell is the actor, and yes, he isn't trans. This is another case of a cis actor playing a trans character, something that is unfortunate because of a variety of factors. Namely, the difficulty with getting into the industry for trans people, who often find themselves only able to play the part of trans people, and for that part to then be taken away does mean that there are just less chances to break in, as well as that a trans person in the role or the creative process affords the ability for the show to be more accurate in its portrayal. And finally, that having trans people play trans characters doesn't give off the wrong impressions to the audience, though having the gender that they are identified as play them is the better of the two cis options. Despite all of those factors, I must say that I enjoyed Chris O'Donnell's performance. It stayed relatively true to a kind take on the character, as well as presenting them in a light that did not lean into stereotypes too heavily, or detract from their masculinity or maleness. While this is a situation of trans men dealing with the exact same crap that trans women seem to deal with, which is we just can't get us playing our roles, it's always cis people, it is at least on the more positive side of that representation. And that theme was also true to some degree for the writing of the episode. The overarching narrative being one that saw the main characters accepting of Bill's identity by the end, that saw Charlie come to terms with this person as his friend, that saw Charlie use the right pronouns and name for Bill eventually, as well as Evelyn sleeping with and continuing to date Bill after finding out that he was trans, and that not being used as some kind of indictment of Evelyn as a pervert or anything like that. It doesn't make the audience feel as if it's gross for a woman to sleep with a trans man. Something that is often not so true for trans women and cis men in the TV shows that I reviewed. So that is potentially one different way that I can say this approach was taken. Unfortunately, there's not enough data to make a serious comparative analysis between all trans male and trans female representation in media, but for this entry alone, I would say this is up there with some of the most positive insertions to date for trans representation. This show could have had this episode from 15 years later, and it would feel about as timely. Despite that, there are some jokes and some moments that lean into stereotypes, and into the audience's expectations to laugh at the notion of a trans man existing, especially nearer the beginning of the episode. But I don't think that detracts from the positivity at play. 2.5 Men gets a 9 out of 10 for this episode on the made-up scale that I literally just put in right now. And I wish that more sitcoms had taken similar messages of inclusivity and interpretation from it, than from some of the others that we've covered. If you have any suggestions for other sitcoms or shows that had trans men in them, I would love to analyse them as well, to see if this is truly a recurring theme or a lucky 1 in a million case of a show doing kinda pretty alright if not good. With that said, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, then please consider liking, sharing and subscribing. It all helps the channel and me a lot. If you really, really like what I did here, then the best way to show that is by creating your own TV show or movie and making it almost entirely trans people. So that way, I will have an endless supply of content to last me well into retirement. Oh, I suppose another way to show support would be by going to my Patreon and subscribing there, or as a member here on YouTube. It really does help me to keep the lights on and the camera rolling and the fingers clicky-clacking out scripts. Those in the $5 and up category should be scrolling past the screen right now, and if you want to see your name on there, then well, you know what to do. I'm currently planning for a move, as well as for buying new equipment and new backdrop with my new place that I'm having to line up, thanks to getting kicked out of this one. So money is really helpful right now for going towards that specifically. Also, because people keep asking about it, this card is Mizzix of the Is Magnus. It's my Is It Commander, one of my favourite commanders of all time. This card here, new edition, is Ashiok Wicked Manipulator from the Wildsfire Drain set that just released. It's the alternative variant art by Serena Malion, who is my favourite artist and who I want to get a Mizzix done of, hopefully. So, fingers crossed on that front. And this is Yargle, who is another variant Yargle by Serena. So that's That's what those cards are. In case you were wondering, that's what that is. So yeah. Anyways, I've got a vacation to go and plan for and get prepped for at my parents' place for a week. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.